Hello, class. This is Dr. Benson. I guess I should say this is me again. Anyway, today's video is going to be a review and comment on your needs assessment report assignment and to give you a brief overview of the instructional strategies assignment. Um, this video should be a lot shorter than the other, so let's start with the needs assessment activity. In your needs assessment activity, you were your report assignment, you were given this document, and these were the components of your needs assessment report. Some of you, I thought all of you would, some of you recognize that this is the same information that I provided to you in your needs assessment activity part 2. So basically, I gave you the objectives, I told you who the target audience was, I told you what kind of sampling you were doing, I told you what data collection methods you were using. I told you what instruments. And I even broke the question, broke your questions down into the areas that we were going to study them. The interest knowledge questions, the learner profile, and the application setting questions. So these are things that we've already done. You gave ideas for your interest knowledge questions during the needs assessment bulletin board discussion. You gave examples of questions you would add for your learner profile in your application section back when we did learner profile and environmental analysis. And then we talked about protocols. And then we talked about data analysis and descriptive analysis. And most of you got that because you used the tables that were provided in Qualtrics. But summary profiles should be constructed from the qualitative data. And that's those open-ended questions. And some of you summarized that data, but many of you did not. And then time and resources. So much of this information was already provided to you. Some people, copied it and just put it in better sentences instead of saying you are using. They described it as their project. So those first 7 items were not meant to be difficult. And that's why they were accounted for the fewest points. Now, if you look at the rest of it, the bulk of the points, 45 points, came from the results. And so the results, I wanted the information you got for the learner profile, for the application environment, and for knowledge interest. Where some of you fell down here is that you didn't present all the data that you collected. In the results section, you have to present all your data. I asked you in your summary conclusions to then talk about what those results mean for your design. Now, some of you sort of did both at the same time, and I did not take off points for that. I did take off points if you did not present all your data in these 3 categories, and you will see those points taken off. References, and then most of you did. I was very, 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 I don't know, I guess I should stop saying very. I was very, very pleased with your summary conclusions. I think everybody in the class was able to see how the needs assessment gave them some information that could help them tweak their objectives or their or their content analysis or their topic outline. Sometimes I use those interchangeably. So it was very clear to me that people could see that based on what they had learned about their learners, that they could now alter their content and or alter their objectives. For example, one class was doing, well, not one class, I'm sorry, one team was looking at burnout. And when they were defining their burnout outline and objectives, they were thinking that all of these were going to be novice nurses. Well, it turned out that most of these nurses have 15 to 16 years of experience, so they aren't novice. But interestingly enough, they had a strong interest in this topic of burnout. So now what this team is left to do is to figure out, how do I take a topic that I thought was going to be geared toward um, novice nurses, how do I gear that and make that appropriate for more experienced nurses? And that's just, you know, that's the kind of thing that happens in a needs assessment. And that's why we do it. And that's excellent. That's excellent. That's excellent. Now remember, what we did is we did the needs assessment, the learner analysis, and the environmental analysis in the same report. In in many cases, you'll do the needs assessment first, and then you'll do the learner analysis and the environmental analysis later. But we put those three things together. But that information influence what your course could be. And I hope you see now why I tried to get some of you to think more broadly with your topic, so that when you get this information back from the nurses, you'll have something to tweak. If you have been too focused, you might actually find yourself not having anything to teach based on the feedback from the nurses themselves. One group talked about this. I think this was the EpiPen group, which I think was an interesting outcome for them. They were looking at teaching this EpiPen exercise face to face. Unfortunately, those nurses said we want to do this online, so that presents a challenge for that group. I think their position was to do this in a blended fashion, but it forces them now to think about activities that they can do online. What can we do online, and what do we have to do face to face? Do we have to do anything face to face? How do we do this? Let me think. Let me see if I think of some other groups. Well, I gave one from nursing and one from IT, so I think we're good. But the idea is that I think you understood that based on the data, you needed to alter your topic outline, you needed to alter your objectives, and some of you began to think about, okay, I need to use different kinds of strategies. Because maybe you will use different strategies with a beginning nurse than you would use with a more advanced nurse. And that's just in the case of the people who were doing burnout. But I just thought I was excited actually with how well you did on this section. One thing that came up, and it came up on several papers, is people kept saying, I wish I had known more about the nurses. Well, I hope you see now that the purpose of the learner analysis is for you to learn about your audience. It's okay that you didn't know all this up front. A lot of times we think that we know our learners because we've been teaching a topic for so long, and we just assume that they're all the same. But if you did this kind of analysis in any class that you did, you might find yourself tweaking that class somewhat. One of the reasons that we're spending so much time on activities, we did the instructional strategies one, we're doing the assessment strategies, and then we're going to do instructional strategies two, is because so many of you said you had experience with this process. Not all of you, but very many of you. And what I know is that these strategies, everybody, if you're a teacher or if you thought about teaching, you're always looking for new strategies or ways to think about doing things that you haven't done before. And so we are spending so much time on these because of the makeup of this class. I think it's a good thing to do, but might not have been done if everybody didn't have some experience doing this. And I shouldn't say everybody, because people's reaction, for example, I've had very different reactions to Gagne. I'm just still loving the Gagne bloom, but I talked about that later, so I'm not going to talk about that again until I do the next video where I talk about your final project. So I'm going to leave that for later. So you talked about your challenges, and one of the challenges that people brought up was that they didn't know the learner, but that's fine. That's the process. That's what we're doing. You weren't supposed to know the learner. I think I said to one group earlier, you want to do the needs of, you want to do the learner analysis before you do the learner analysis, or you want to do the needs assessment before you do the learner analysis, or before you do anything, and you can't do it beforehand. I mean, you just, well, I guess you could, but you can't. If you don't know the learners, you have to find out about them. And the way you find out about them is going through these processes. Now, I admit that in some cases you might have more time. You might be able to collect data in multiple different ways, and I want you to think about that going forward. But in some cases, you're going to have even less time than we had to do this, because a lot of people consider this unnecessary. You know the topic, you teach what you know. But I hope you found from doing this needs assessment, learner analysis, topic of environmental analysis, I hope you've learned that it pays to find out at least a little bit about your learners so that they can help you to cater what you're going to teach. Understanding that we have a diverse group in any setting. Anyway, I'm going to stop on that part. And then the next thing I'm going to do, and Lord, it's been almost 10 minutes. I didn't intend to go that far. But I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about your Instructional Strategies 2 assignment. Hello, class. It's me. Well, I don't know why I'm saying hello. I'm just continuing this discussion since it's in the same presentation. What I wanted to talk to you about this time was about the Instructional Strategies 2 activity. This is the activity that you will do after your Assessment Strategies activity. Now, if you recall, we've done one instructional strategy activity, and that activity was based around the bunk book. And so we found those activities in the bunk book. We're going to do something similar here, but we're going to use another source. The source that we're going to use this time is the book called Emerging Perspectives of Learning, Teaching, and Technology. This is a web-based book that was created by Dr. Mike Ory from the University of Georgia and some of his students over the years. And so what this book does is it put forth several, here we go, learning theories and instructional models. And so what you're going to do in this activity is I have assigned each team one instructional model. What you're going to do is you're going to use this book as your resource, and you're free to use any other resources that you want to use in order to describe what the model is that you've been assigned, and then to come up with 2 or 3 activities based on that model that you might use in your instruction. The number of activities that you are assigned to come up with is the same as the number of people in your group. So if there are 3 people in your group, you're to come up with 3. If there are 2 people in your group, you're to come up with 2. I think you'll like this. This is a nice little book, and hopefully it'll be a book that you come back to. Hopefully, that it'll become a resource for you. Basically, that's what I would like to have happen. So let's go back. So basically, each team has been assigned a model from that book. Most of the examples in that book are K-12, so you K-12 people will like it. But if you're not K-12, that's a good reason for us to come up with other ways that we can use it. Use these instructional models. And then when you've done, we're going to go back to the same tables that you used for Gagne and, that you used for Bonk. So your instructional strategies, materials, assessment, mapping table. To this table, you're going to add the activities that you create in this assignment. Okay. So you got columns. So we're going to fill out that table through column 6. And then what you're going to do is you created a Bloom taxonomy table in your instructional strategies activity, and you located your bunk activities in cells on that table. What I'm asking you to do here is to insert now these new activities that you come up with, that you insert those in the same table. So you should have a Bloom's taxonomy table that has your bunk activities and the activities that you created this week based on the instructional model you were assigned. And then you're going to do the same thing for the Gagne table, the one that was based on table 9.2 in the text. You already have that table. It already exists with your bunk activities. And to those, you're going to add the activities from the instructional model that you've been assigned. And then I have a couple of, as usual, a couple of reflection questions for you. How do the instructional models you reviewed this week differ from the instructional design models that you reviewed earlier in the course? And the reason I ask this question is because some of these instructional models, people suggested as instructional design models that they wanted to study at the beginning of the course. For example, somebody wanted to do cognitive apprenticeship. So we're going to look at that as an instructional model. So what I'm asking you to do is to look at these models and see how they are alike or different from the instructional design models that we've looked at. And then I'm going to ask you the diversity question again. How could you use your selection of instructional strategies to address issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion? Those are your 2 reflection questions. And so these are the models that you've been assigned. All those models are in the book that I just showed you, but you're welcome to use other resources. So I think this one is fairly clear. If you have any questions, just let me know. And like I said, I am grading I finished grading. I finished grading your instructional strategies, and I finished grading your needs assessment report. But I have not posted either grade. I will post them before midnight tomorrow. I like to go back and double check that I have been consistent. And I have to clean up some things from the week before. I think I took off points for some people who didn't respond because the people that they were supposed to respond to posted late. So I need to go back and give those people their points. So other than that, I think we are about caught up. Just want to say that I think you all are doing a great job, and from my perspective, it seems to me that you're learning. I hope it feels that way from your perspective as well. So I look forward to us finishing up the course on a high note with everybody feeling really good about what they've learned and how they can use it going forward. So have a good week. Um, I'll be talking to you soon because I have to do another video for your final assignment and then the formative evaluation activity. So that's it for now. Let me know if you have questions. Dr. Benson signing out.